with hooks is that a resource is being provisioned, and just before CloudFormation goes to call the API to actually provision the thing, your policy is evaluated against it, and it chooses to block it or reject it or permit it. I'll show you some other cool things too, but I'll save that for later.
That sounds fantastic. I really do like the way that you put it, and just to be able to visualize and contextualize that you do everything like normal, then right before you hit the big button, there's that last mile or that last effort to go through and make sure that, hey, anything that you pull out of the water is the right length. Anything that you're trying to figure out is exactly where it needs to be before something bad happens. I really like the way that you put that.
Yeah, and CloudFormation does that for you, right? And so instead of having to rely on your developers doing it before they submit their CloudFormation template to be deployed, CloudFormation does the text for you.
Yeah, the level of sanity that that's going to save, the level of comfort, and I really appreciate the way that you put it, and being afraid or reticent anyway to give developers more access than what they need. I work with partners on a daily basis, and that's the biggest push and pull that they have. You don't want to give them too much ability to go and potentially wipe an account out or deploy into another organization, but you also can't constantly be going back and forth and saying, hey, I need another level of access. I need to be able to do this. Hey, I need read and write access for this. It's never ending otherwise. So I would imagine that as we're going through the demo, we're going to see some pretty cool stuff that's going to be really analogous to Time Saver and have the ability to go through and really change the way that people experience doing these things.
Exactly. And it's so and everyone says this when they're about to do a demo, but it really is super simple. So let me actually just, I'm going to spin up a hook right now in my real account, and I'm going to show you what it's like to be protected by the CloudFormation gods via policy as code. Sound good?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. All right, so I'm in the CloudFormation console now, and you can kind of see on the left, there's this new hook section. There's this really cool little graphic and articles are sort of describing what hooks is, but we all did that. So I'm going to actually go in and set up our own hook right now.
Cool.
So in hooks, there's two different ways to create a hook. One is with a Lambda function. So we will just call a Lambda function whenever something happens, and you write the code that does the evaluation. It can do whatever you want. It can make network calls. It can roll a dice. It can see your stats on if you've beaten Baldur's Gate 3. It can do whatever you want, which is super fun. I'm not going to show that today. I'm going to show you creating a hook using our policy as code DSL called CloudFormation Guard.
Okay.
So when you go to create your CloudFormation Guard hook, it has to run some guard rules. Full disclosure, I'm really good at writing Go and Kotlin and fun languages like that. I am not good at writing policy as code. And a lot of folks aren't. A lot of organizations aren't great at writing policy as code. But the good news is we don't really have to be. So on creating our guard hook, there's actually this GitHub repo that I can just click on here with a bunch of predefined best practices for each AWS service. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so we can actually see. But if you look at Amazon S3, for example, there's all these rules which are super they seem very reasonable, right? I don't know what object lock is, but we should probably enable it. Or there's no read access, public read access always feels like a good thing, right? We don't want your buckets being open. And there's rules like this written for all sorts of different services. So I'm going to cheat a little bit for our demo today. I actually cloned this repo and selected a few of the rules, and I zipped them all together and uploaded them to an S3 bucket. So these are my guard rules. So I uploaded these to our a bucket in S3. This is my bucket from reInvent when I was playing around with hooks. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just point my guard hook that I'm creating to those rules that I have pulled from the GitHub repository.
Okay.
The cool thing with Guard is also if you've ever run it locally or if you've ever played with Guard, it gives you a really detailed output report of what went wrong, what violated the rule, exactly where. So when CloudFormation runs your Guard rules, we'll take that report and we'll upload it to S3 for you. In this case, I'm just going to select the same bucket where I am pulling the rules from.
All right.
So David, we can inherit all of these best practices and guard rules, and it doesn't need to just be one set of rules for, say, S3 as you demoed. It could be across a number of different services, zip all of the guard rules up and into a single file, and then now you're taking a look at the entirety of your organization's, let's say, set of policies.
That's exactly right. Yep. And you'll see I wrote a template that I'll share with you in a minute that exercises many of these different rules that span many different AWS services. So I'm going to call this very cool OnAir hook because I think we can all agree that this is a very cool hook. And we can select where this hook is going to run. So I'm going to just choose resources right now, but we'll come back to this. So there's different places these hooks can run. And we can choose when during the resource provisioning lifecycle we'll run this hook as well. So I'm going to press create an update. So anytime we create or update a resource in our CloudFormation stack, this hook will run. Your hook can run in two different modes. It can run in warning mode, which is it will tell you that something failed, but continue provisioning. Or it can actually fail the CloudFormation operation completely and stop provisioning if your policy fails. I think for dramatic effect, we should choose fail. So we can see things truly fail. And I'm going to call this OnAir guard hook roll. Cool roll. It's important that everything we do is cool. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to skip this section, but you can narrow down exactly which resources or which stacks your hook runs for, but I'm going to have it run for everything. And I'm going to actually turn this hook on.
While that's running, David, we got a question from the chat from SBob007. What type of hook would you want to run on a CloudFormation delete? So we talked about protecting you from a create. That makes sense. But what type of protections do you see from customers when they're saying the resources already exist, but I want to protect my environment from deleting resources?
Yeah, I think like a really good example is any stateful resource, right? So a DynamoDB table, your S3 bucket, your KMS key, things like that, things that you don't want deleted. And again, CloudFormation offers a lot of different ways to help you protect against things like that, like deletion policies and like retain policies. But things like this, it's defense in depth, like stop things from being deleted. Or hooks don't actually have to be purely like a yes/no gate. You can use it to send a notification saying that like a DynamoDB table was deleted or something like that. So you can be pretty flexible in when you choose to run deletes.
Very cool.
Cool. So I'm going to actually show you this hook in action. And to do that, I want to first show you a template that I have generated. Okay. So this is a really standard, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, a super standard CloudFormation template. It's just a Lambda function with a DynamoDB table and S3 bucket. I asked an LLM to generate this just before the show. And it looks really nice, right? Like it's, I know I'm kind of scrolling a little quickly, but like your S3 bucket has literally no properties, can't be better than that. DynamoDB table with a hash key, iconic. And it even has point-in-time recovery turned on. So this is grade A stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a stack right now using that template. From the web, next, please work.
And we want to hear chat when David goes to run this CloudFormation template. Just an S3 bucket, single line of declarative YAML. What do we think is going to happen?
Yeah, I'll just while the CloudFormation is running, I'll just take you back to this. And does anyone see anything wrong with this? Like, if I got a code review for this, I would say that this is excellent. The person should get promoted. Like simplicity at its best. But yeah, does anyone have any thoughts on maybe over permissive
little bit
policies or?
yeah, that's the first one that stuck out to me. I have a feeling this is going to go down like a lead weight. It's just going to just go ahead and tank. But I would love to see what happens.
Oh boy, it looks like you're right, bud. So if I go through, I look at all the events in my CloudFormation stack. This is the normal CloudFormation provisioning like workflow that you're seeing. Sorry, it's a little squished. But as you can see, before all of these things were created, it started running my hook, right? It ran my guard hook, and then like it failed. And Adrian, you're spot on. Apparently, a policy called IAM role administrator access policy rule has failed my template, which honestly makes a lot of sense. But also, my DynamoDB table failed provisioning. My S3 bucket failed for multiple different rules as well. Yeah,
that is handy.
It is, but this is annoying. I don't super love having to click these tiny little like things in the hooks invocations tab. But if you actually go to the S3 bucket that I mentioned earlier, there's this new folder that got created called CFN Guard Validate Report. And if you click on it, it shows you all the different detailed reports of exactly what was wrong.
And is there with each report per guard rule?
Sorry?
Is there one report generated on a per guard file basis?
Per file, yeah. So there's one report generated, per resource. So if I clicked into this and showed you the report, I won't do it because it's kind of like gnarly JSON, and it's zoomed in at 200%, so it'll look like a bunch of brackets. But you would see that it ran all of my guard rules against this S3 bucket. It skipped some of them because they weren't applicable, because an IAM policy rule doesn't make sense for an S3 bucket. But it did run all the S3 rules. So if I was a developer right now, what I would do is I would download each of these reports one by one, identify each of the issues, and try to fix it. And that's super fine, but I don't know how many folks on the stream today have debugged CloudFormation issues before. But one of my least favorite activities is what I call a spray and pray, basically just updating my template, sending it back to CloudFormation, and hoping this time it passes validation. I think a better developer experience, something that I would prefer, is to sort of know before I try to apply these changes what would break. And to show you that, I'm actually going to go show you, we're going to go back to my cool hook that we created earlier, our very cool OnAir hook. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about hook targets. So this hook ran, it failed my S3 bucket from creating, my IAM role from creating, my DynamoDB table from creating, because it didn't meet the policies that I had set up when I created this rule. But the dev test cycle for that is very long. And really what I want is when I create a change set to know before I even execute it, if these rules would pass or fail. That way I can before I even try to make any changes in my infrastructure, no. So I'm going to turn this hook, I'm going to update this hook to target change sets as well.
It is pretty fantastic to know that you can do this to make sure that when the dev launches, they're not just going to sit there and flounder.
Yeah, the faster I can iterate as a developer without having to sit around and wait for certain things to happen. The happier I am, and the faster I can actually make changes to fix the issues that are coming out. So this time, instead of just creating the stack with the submit button, I'm going to press create change set. And this change set is going to get try to be created, but this time the change set failed because my very cool OnAir hook failed. And if I go over here and click the status message, you can see this time, this change set was not able to be executed, is not executable because the following rules failed. My DynamoDB table encryption must be, my DynamoDB table must be encrypted. My IAM role mustn't be administrator. I don't have bucket lock enabled, even though it should be because it's cool. I don't have S3 bucket read prohibited turned on. And all of these, like a detailed report of exactly what these mean, how to fix it, what line in my template this happened at, was output to that same S3 bucket that I showed you earlier, which is super cool. So
that is, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of sitting here and putting myself in the shoes of an operator and not wanting to go and chase my tail for quite some time. I just got hired to a company trying to make a splash. Going through and putting something like this into place to ensure that the quality of life of the developer is going to go ahead and increase. Mean time to resolution is going to decrease. Mean time to actual launch, how fast you can start turning around and onboarding customers. This is just kind of a bit of a net win. And the way that you've not only presented it, but also shown how intuitive it is and how the individual can actually go through and start figuring out exactly what it is that they're tripping up on before they actually go and spend the time and they have to wait for the stack set to delete and go through and reconfigure. Sometimes it could take hours, and many large instances of a partner trying to deploy something like 4,800 accounts, that can be a day or two. So this is, I got to commend you. This is pretty fantastic.
Well, the thing that we were trying to think about when we were building this is we don't want developers or organizations to really have to change the way they do deployments. That's so hard. We did that at Amazon. It took years to get everyone onto continuous deployment, standardized tooling, and not everyone's going to be there, or maybe there's just going to be a bunch of tools, different tools that folks are experimenting with. By injecting hooks at change sets or the stack time, you don't have to change your CI or your CD. All those things just work the same. It just now will appear as a failure to developers if they don't if their change doesn't meet policy, which is super cool. So yeah,
there's a question in the chat from SBobcat007 again. How can you get that same check for new CloudFormation stacks? Is that something that's possible?
Yeah, totally. So what I didn't show, but I will now. So this actually was a change set for creating a stack, but you can tell your hook in the different targets. I'll click this bad boy. You can have you can select stack operations as well, and since we have create, anytime a stack is created or updated, these hooks will run.
Okay. That is pretty slick. As easy as clicking a button, setting a switch from the CLI. That's pretty cool. I know we might be bludgeoning cool to death a little bit, but this is actually pretty slick. I got to say, y'all have outdone yourselves.
Oh, good. Well, not to. I should show you what life is like on a happy path, because I feel like most of us write perfect code all the time. So you should experience what it looks like when hooks works with perfect code. But I'll just show you briefly, from the output of that guard rule, I was able to take my template and, in response to all these different policies, fix it, right? So I changed my role to Lambda execution role, just super simple. I added object lock, public access blocking, point-in-time recovery, stable encryption. I added all those things. And now I'll show you just one last time me creating a change set for a stack with a compliant template, and you can see how cool things are.
Yeah, please, because otherwise I think we might be in a little trouble if we didn't go through and do that. I have a problem. I'm sorry.
That's fair. This is mostly for me, so people know that I actually do know how to write CloudFormation that is compliant with best practices. So
yeah, otherwise you'd just be catfishing us. But I digress.
OMG, these little fishies. Sorry, I am a sucker for a good pun. So
you're in the right place, I think.
Cool.
In progress, and just like that, CloudFormation hooks ran swimmingly.
Oof. 10 out of 10, no notes.
Amazing. Cool.
Well,
yeah,
awesome.
So this is it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, David. Is there anything that you'd like to leave the chat and our viewers as a bit of a call to action, how they can go about get started and learn some more?
Yeah, totally. So just go to your CloudFormation console, hit the hooks section, hooks overview. We spent a lot of time writing documentation on how to write guard hooks, how to write Lambda hooks to do cool stuff. So go read it. It was written by humans for humans. So have fun. Happy deploying. Be safe.
Thank you so much for joining us, David. Always a pleasure. Don't be shy. Come back. I'm sure we'll be able to continue to celebrate our Mar wins together as we go.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Wow. That was epic. That was a really, I think this is a special episode. We get to introduce to the audience who might be experiencing infrastructure as code for the first time, like, hey, here's how AWS CloudFormation can solve real customer challenges around. You mentioned partners who have thousands of resources or even accounts, how you do that at scale. But then for someone who have been using CloudFormation since 2011, I believe, when it was launched, this is a common pain point that people have been experiencing that you could sort of work around with Event Bridge and custom Lambdas or config. That was reactive. This is proactive, quick, easy, simple, via Lambda or guard rules. I mean, what could be better?
I mean, a lot of folks may have other fish to fry, but honestly, for me, coming from an operations background, this is huge. Being able to pull the end on cord and say effectively halt the deployment process. Here's something that we know definitively and explicitly called out as not meeting our standard. You can't circumvent the standard anymore. You have to go through and go fix your code. You have to go do it. We can teach you the best practices and help you go along the way. This is going to be a huge time saver. I'm very confident that if there aren't a couple partners that I closely work with that aren't already looking at this, I would suspect that this is going to be a bit of a top order for this quarter for them. Absolutely. But enough about the pros and cons about stopping developers from doing bad things, because if bad things didn't happen, a lot of us wouldn't have things to do. But that said, we do have a survey. We do want you to let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you think of the content, whether the puns are horrible, and I know they are. But the cool thing is the first 50 individuals that respond to the survey are going to get a gift code or a code for $20 in AWS credit. So by all means, let us know what you think. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, and we'll keep learning and doing better and working to make sure we meet your expectations.
That's right, folks. It's official. Credits are back. If you're having a great time, tell us how much you love Tina, our producer. If you're having a terrible time, tell us it's all Nick's fault.
Yep, that's a code word.
Very, very simple. Want to tell us about our next segment, Adrian? This is gonna be a fun one.
Yeah. We're going to be joined by the Repost Live team. We have learned more and more, and in a direct response to survey feedback, a lot of customers and viewers in the chat have been asking questions as we go, and sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge to get to all of them. But the Repost Live team, they are the individuals that staff and maintain and proactively engage with you to answer those questions for you in real time. In many instances, we're going to bring them on. They're going to go through some of these questions and help you answer anything else that may be coming up, and would love for you to let us know how you think that they're doing as well in that survey. So if you're ready to bring them on, I'm ready, Robbie.
Let's do it. Let's hear from Jay and Steven from the Repost Live team. Here we go.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Yeah, I like that promotion there, Jake. Thanks for that, Robbie. Adrian, appreciate it. I might pull a muscle trying to keep up with Adrian and all his fish puns. How's everybody doing? Yeah,
it was getting fishy.
Yeah,
it started.
I'm a bit of a fish out of water with that. So I'm Stephen Heverin. I'm a senior TAM. I'm based out of Philadelphia, PA, where it's a little chilly today. And I'm joined by my colleague, Jay Bush, who's based in Des Moines, Iowa, where I think it might even be colder today. Jay, you want to introduce yourself?
Jay Bush, senior TAM out of Des Moines. And no, it is it's about 40 degrees. Still, okay. It's not fishing weather, but it's okay. It's okay.
You don't have to cut through the ice to get out there, though.
Yeah. It's all right.
So yeah, we're both hosts for the AWS Repost Live series, where, as they were talking about, we dive deep into questions and use cases from the Repost community. If you haven't yet, head over to repost.aws today. Sign up to be part of our show. There's a lot to explore, asking questions about services, expert articles, things like that. Anything else there, Jay, before we start to dive in?
No, a lot of guidance out there, right, Stephen? We're posting all the time, letting folks know our thoughts. So let us know your use case, whether it be, CloudFormation hooks or otherwise. There's a lot of goodies out there on Repost. So head over. Best community on the internet, of course, and Repost Live is one of the best shows. So
Yep,
for
you
sure.
can go over, sign up with your Builder ID or your AWS account ID, get started, ask your questions, answer questions from others in the community. We got a lot of great community users that answer a lot of questions, but we got less time today than our usual show. So we're going to dive right into chat, ask questions as we're going along, answering these questions, and we'll try to answer your questions as we go along as well. So taking off of the demo David did, and that great demo, and I know, like, watching them, I always learn something new coming into the show.
Yeah.
So the question we got from our Repost community here is how to enable CloudFormation hooks for AWS proactive compliance checks. This comes from Johan Bourne, a user in the Repost community. And what they're looking to do here is they've got AWS config rules that they also want to be able to kind of check before stuff's being deployed. Yeah. And, they want to have that managed config rule to also trigger on that. So it probably helps to go and touch a little bit more first on what David had kind of touched on with his demo, right? David did the hooks, right? Just a guard hook that you can do there. But there's two other types of hooks that you can do, the Lambda hook as well as a custom hook. So, a guard, using the guard DSL, that language, you can craft rules. If you know what the rule is, the business rule is, you can get pretty prescriptive about that, apply those hooks as he was demoing before, and to be able to, check that resource and stuff like that. Here in this case, right, you kind of have two options here as I saw the use case, right? If they want to use that proactive AWS config rule that they've got configured, they're going to want to take that up to the next level and be able to use the Lambda hook. So they're going to create a Lambda that's going to call that AWS config proactive rule to do that check that they want to have. And again, come out with that same result, right? You can either warn or you can fail that CloudFormation based on that check to make sure that they're putting that block in place, whether it's that you've got encryption enabled on your storage, or that you've got the right zone and stuff configured for that kind of things. So here in this case, with what they're asking for to do here, it's not a direct call. Like, you can't use a guard rule. One of the things I learned in kind of going through this was, the guard rule can't call config. So you kind of have to go up to the next level. But there's two kind of ways that I was thinking about this, at least from my perspective, and wanting to keep things somewhat simple, right? I don't want to necessarily have to spin up a Lambda. I can create guard rules that do that proactive check and do the same thing as config would do against maybe the delivered resources. So I could use my config to check the resources that have been deployed to make sure that they're compliant and they meet all of our needs. But then I can use the guard rules to be proactive to make sure people aren't spinning things up that are going to go against those rules anyway. So again, you got those two kind of options there. That third option there, I think of is the custom resource, where you've got to code everything, right? Yeah. And that's, I think, for those use cases where you've got something really complex, really specific, something hyper, where if you can't solve it with a Lambda, then I guess you're going to have to write your custom resource. I don't think that's the job I'd want to take on. I don't know about you, but
I like a good challenge, to be honest. And I know we had a question, right, that was kind of similar, that was using some custom resources. I don't want to jump the gun, but
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's this one, right, from the Repost user. Do you want to?
Yeah. So I think the TLDR here, I found this out on Repost, a little older, because I definitely think some of the newer announcements can certainly be applied to this use case, Stephen, for sure. And chat, let us know if you have a similar use case. But effectively, this user writes that they effectively are trying to deploy EC2 instances in a balanced and well-architected manner, right? They're following the guidance that their SA or TAM told them was best for the business, right? Everyone
always listen to your TAM.
Always listen to your TAM. So they are just merely trying to deploy in a compliant way that's resilient, right? And historically, it looks like the guidance from the repos community was to leverage a custom resource, which was fine, certainly, and definitely functions. I'd argue that our recent announcement, right, with the integration with Lambda might be a better fit here, a way to more directly accomplish this type of balancing, right, before resources are deployed in a customer's environment.
Yeah, absolutely. As I'm reading through this, right, that would be my first thought is I'd want to go with that Lambda to be able to put that in place and make it a little easier. I mean, not to say going with the custom resources is the wrong thing, right? It depends on what your needs and stuff are. But I think I always look to that. Let's go for the simplest thing first and kind of work my way up there. Let us know in chat. What do you think? What's your preferred way of kind of implementing these controls, right? I think David or Adrian or somebody in the previous episode mentioned like that layered approach, right? Where you've got guard rules in place, here for the hooks, you've got config rules in place, you've got your security rules in place to kind of layer that security on, layer that control on, so that you're making sure that your developers aren't creating a whale of a problem for you down the line in your AWS account, right?
Yeah, everyone loves the KISS method, right? From day one. That's day one of IT.
Absolutely. So with this, I think, do we have another question? The fish puns have got me all kinds of...
no, I think we might. We got a few minutes. We could probably squeeze in one, Stephen. I don't want to overstay our welcome, but I think we got time for one quick one.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's two... right. So this was one when we were going through and looking at the questions that people had about hooks and stuff. This one kind of, jumped out of the water at me and is a little bit to the left of the side. But I think it falls into the same area over here with using our cloud control API, right? And that's being able to put in those kind of controls and stuff to govern your environment within AWS. And you got a user here, they're trying to manage their EC2 instances with this. So managing the instance, at the time when they posted this, it wasn't supported. But one of the things at the time it wasn't supported, but as a couple of our experts came back and replied to Ramakrishna and Giovanni had written back, they're like, hey, yeah, if you want to keep, it's not able to be provisioned at that time when they posted this, but they gave, what I really like is they said, hey, this is how you can check. This is how you can programmatically check to see what resource types and stuff are going to be able to be provisioned. So you can run that check and kind of know right there without having to go off and search the documentation or know stuff like that. And so you can run this describe type and it comes back as non-provisionable. So I went, oh, we got to be able to have this today. So as it turns out, through our help file, through our documentation that we updated this month earlier on, we've added in those EC2 types. So if you're using the Cloud Control API, you can go back to that documentation and see that, or you can run that same describe type to see if it's going to come back and return that they can provision it, or if it's going to be fully immutable or partially immutable, mutable, that is. And and so I went back, I posted that user, let them know that, that's available now and they can run that check and be able to get there to that. So I think, we got one time quick for one more thing here. And this is something I got confirmation from David offline. Is there a way to increase the timeout when hooks are called? And the answer is, well, what you can do, that the hook itself is going to take maybe about 30 seconds for a timeout, but you can configure it to do a callback. So if the hook does time back, you can set an operation to have it call back. And you can do that across regardless of whether or not you've got a guard, Lambda, or that custom resource and stuff. It's all part of that definition of the hook. So I think that's it. We actually got in a lot more.
We squeezed it in. Yeah, we did it. We did it. If you're in chat, head over to repost.aws, sign up with your AWS account ID, your builder ID. Stephen and I always love to hear from you. Join Repost Live.
And don't forget to subscribe here on Twitch or wherever you're watching from to get more AWS Repost Live and similar shows. Until next time, happy building, and stay tuned for Jeff Barr in the news next.
I smell fish.
Wow. That is great music. I think I'm going to fill out the survey this week and say, I want new music when we come up on the screen. I was bopping along there the entire time. Man,
I was definitely sounds like something I'd put the kids to sleep to. We've been favoring lo-fi hip hop lately. It's just instant knockout for the kids. It's almost like I pulled a tarp over a canary's cage and they just go out immediately. But I gotta say, I knew I was going to learn something, and while I was very enthused to go into that segment, I wasn't expecting to pick up that much knowledge that fast. That was pretty cool.
Absolutely. It's just like the Repost Live team and our segments here. We're just swimming in sync. We're just gonna keep working together here. Huge shout out to Jay and Steven. Go check out repost.aws. This is awesome stuff.
It is all good stuff. I think it may be time to welcome back Mr. Jeff Barr. Are you ready for it, Robbie?
Let's do it. Hey Jeff, let's bring you on.
Mr. Barr, how are you, sir?
You are on mute.
How about that?
That deserves a trout slap. Fantastic. Welcome back, Jeff.
All right. I guess I wasn't being suitably efficient. Great to see you both.
Likewise.
Nice. And we know you've got a few updates for us here this week. We can't wait to hear them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, so as always, if you're new here, I'm Jeff Barr. I'm a 22-year veteran of Amazon and AWS, and every week I go through our most recent launches, and I pick just a few that catch my eye. Here are some cool ones for this week. The first one is super, super neat. You can now go to the AWS console, and you can simultaneously sign into up to 5 either root, IAM, or federated roles. Can be in the same account or actually across different accounts. And then you can switch between them with a click. I think I've got an image here. Let me get my images pulled up here. Yeah, if you can see that little image right there, you just go to your accounts menu in the top right, and you select that you want to do the multi-session sign in. It does a quick prompt for you. It does that prompt. You agree to that, and after that, then you go ahead and you'll get multiple accounts. You drop down that menu, and you can add in your initial account. Then you can add up to 4 accounts, roles, or IAM users in there. So super, super, super cool. Like that one a lot. It's so clean and so simple. We always tell our customers, we say there's a lot of really good reasons to use multiple accounts. For different, you can isolate dev to dev, or you might have a production environment, a staging environment, a test environment, a development environment. Create bunches of accounts. They're easy to do and they're free. We got so many features that actually make it easy to share across accounts. So go ahead, use lots of accounts, and use this cool feature to switch between them. So we'll drop a link to that in the chat. I like that one a bunch. All right, next cool thing. We'll step ahead here again. Did that work? Yes. Okay, we just launched a new AWS region in Mexico. It's called the Mexico Central region. So if you were here last week, you know that we launched a region in Thailand, and back-to-back 2 successive weeks, we just launched a new region in Mexico. I sure wish we could launch a region every week. That'd be kind of amazing, but these are multi-billion-dollar investment commitments. So we do them as quickly as we possibly can. This is our first region in Mexico. The API code is MX-Central-1. Like all of our new regions, it's got 3 availability zones. It's got a ton of services. And what's actually pretty neat is that when we launch these regions, we don't just get them there and let them be as is. That's a starting point. We make a commitment to our customers and to the country that says we're going to continue to invest over time. For this particular region, we said we're going to continue to invest for the next 15 years with a commitment of over $5 billion US, which I think is pretty cool to do for that area. We've also, but the one thing that our customers should actually know is that this is not the first piece of AWS infrastructure in Mexico. We already have 7 CloudFront edge locations. We've got outposts. We've got a local zone in Querétaro, which also, it turns out, is home to a lot of good places where you can get fish tacos. I just verified just a few seconds ago. And we also have AWS Direct Connect And we've got, of course, Graviton processors and Intel processors and Trainium and Inferentia. The number of regions is actually pretty amazing. This gets us up to 36 regions around the world with 114 availability zones, which are kind of mind-blowing when you think about the number of choices that gives our customers for where they store their data, where they process their data, options for how they can expand internationally, and they can, if they expand into a particular part of the world, and customers or regulations say you need to store and process your data close by. All these regions give them incredible choices, and then magnified even more by the local zones if they need to deploy low latency apps. And if they need something on premises, they've got the outpost as well. So as I always share, I love all these different options that are all AWS at the core, because it gives customers choice. And it also says whatever investment you make in training and building tools and so forth, all that's going to apply to all these different locations. So you're getting this multi-dimensional kind of aspect to your AWS investment. So those are two cool things. And the last one, this is kind of an expansion thing. So back in 2023, many years ago, we launched something called Flex instances. And so the Flex instances recognize the fact that a lot of applications really don't need to burn 100% of the CPU all the time. So the idea of the Flex is you get better price performance, and you get lower prices, and you get a baseline of 40% CPU performance. You can scale up to full performance 95% of the time. So 40% is actually a lot of the CPU to consume on a long-term basis. So you can run a ton of different applications on there. If things get busy, maybe they get busy, do a load spike, but you've also got auto scaling in place. So it's going to be, you're going to get bigger scales for your bigger fish in there, and then you can you can grow that up as well. These are great for web and application servers, virtual desktops, batch processing, microservices, database, all the cool stuff. So back when we did that launch in 2023, we launched 5 sizes of the M7 iFlex instances that range from large up to 8x large. So between 2 and 32 vCPUs and 8 to 128 gigabytes of memory, with Intel Sapphire Rapids processors. Those are super cool. I wish we could go into those in great detail. But then in 2024, we launched the compute optimized C7Is, anywhere from 2 to 32 vCPUs up to 4 to 64 gigabytes of memory. So all that's existing. We've got all these great Flex instances, both the memory optimized and the compute instances, compute optimized. So what we've done is we've added 2 new sizes. We've added the 12x large and the 16x large of both the compute and the memory optimized. So I think of these 2 new sizes basically as the red fish, blue fish, one fish, two fish. One of my favorite books to read to my grandkids, of course. So now we've got 4 additional sizes total of our instances. We'll pop up a little image there for one of them and for the other as well. So more flexibility, literally more sizes, more choice for our customers, and more ways to use AWS and to choose the instance type and size that is just right for your own application. So that's just a little bit of what we launched last week. People can always follow our news blog. They can follow the RSS feed from the blog. They can follow the what's new and the feed from the what's new. And I always love it if people follow me on LinkedIn, where I try to announce some of the new items and so forth as well. That is just about all I've got for today. So reel it in, reel us out.
Thank you. We might have time for one question from the audience if we can get it, but in the interim, whether it's a new account, new instance type, new region, we were just talking about our main segment this week is all about CloudFormation, infrastructure as code, all of which apply as resources. So while we have you, Jeff, I noticed you wrote the launch blog for AWS CloudFormation back in February 25th, 2011. So my question back to you is maybe over the course of 14, almost 14 years now, what's impressed you the most about the service?
Let's see. There's another cool image I generated for us, but I should just hide that one. Let me just put that away. Anyway, what's impressed me the most? The fact that people have really latched on to this idea of infrastructure as code. And I think it really didn't exist before. I'm sure somebody will correct me if that was actually the case, but we really didn't have a concept of infrastructure as code before CloudFormation was launched. And people took to it very, very quickly. And the challenge back then was we didn't support it across all the services. And one of the things I've tried really hard to do back in the 20 years I was doing the news blog is when teams were briefing me on launches, I was always the customer advocate, and I'd always say, please, please, please tell me that you're launching with CloudFormation support, either at launch or as a fast follow right afterward. And the team would do their absolute best to get that CloudFormation support in quickly. There's some very interesting challenges. It turns out that there's parts of the CloudFormation work that can't be done until after the service is deployed to production. I don't know the specifics of that. It was actually pretty interesting that you think with all of the different levels of pre-production staging that we're able to do, there's still some interesting pieces of work that can only be done once the service itself is fully productionized. But I've been pushing really hard because I know customers love the ability to do everything possible with CloudFormation, and so I support them in that endeavor by pushing back on the teams anytime I can.
Well, as a one-time customer before I got here, thank you for helping make the world my oyster, Jeff. It was fantastic. Getting to learn and seeing the advocacy was huge. I remember when
sometimes it feels like swimming upstream to have to force these customers to understand or force the teams to really say for sure that CloudFormation is important. Some of them get it, some kind of don't, but it's always, we're always trying to represent our customers' needs and best interests when we go back to the teams.
But if you if you do take a good Chinook around as we're swimming upstream, there's a ton of advocacy and trying to continuously do right by our customers. So for you laying that foundation on behalf of pretty much everybody, thank you so much for doing that. It's nice to have that fast follow or at launch CloudFormation support.
Absolutely. It's so important. So important. I think kind of filling in the blanks with our services, we launch the big thing and then it's like these little holes in the net. Sometimes you need to fill in all those little holes.
We try our best. We do try our best. Thank you so much for your time, Jeff. I know you've got to jump. As always, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Look forward to the next time.
Yeah, I'm going to have to skip the next week. I'm going to be in Thailand at this time.
You see how you are?
I'll be away for a week. I got Thailand and India on my travel itinerary this time around. So I will wish you the best for next week in my absence.
Well, thank you so much again, Jeff. We're definitely going to miss you.
Anytime. See you later. Keep on.
Yeah, I am going to have to just kind of keep on swimming. We're expecting a pretty big cold snap in Texas next week. It's going to be rather frigid. I might have to break out the gear and actually play in the snow a little bit. Robbie, any parting thoughts that we can leave with the audience before we wrap it up for the day?
Well, we definitely want to keep this conversation going. Again, this is a weekly show, and you might be asking, well, in February, am I also going to be tuning in to twitch.tv/AWS OnAir? We've been talking AWS OnAir for quite a long time here, but we just want to let you know that starting in February, even simpler, twitch.tv/AWS. That simple. So that's one key thing I wanted to make sure the audience knows. You can find us at twitch.tv/AWS. That's where we're going to be starting in February. But we also wanted to remind everyone, we still want to hear from you in the survey. Tell us what you love. Tell us what you want to see. Particular services, particular questions. I kind of miss, I dare I say this, I kind of miss having Nick or Tina on the show with us. I love when our producers get to join us and say hello. And so that's going to be my vote in the survey, but we want to hear from you and all your feedback.
All right, Robbie, thanks so much for hanging out with me again today. Chat, thank you for participating and being so active. We'd love to hear from you. Please take that survey. Let us know what you like, what you want to see more of, and if we need to give the puns a rest. But I seriously don't think that that's going to be a point of feedback. But if it is, we will do what we can, and we're going to be sure we give you what you want, what you need, and come see us next time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.